Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to learn how to write a HiSET essay. Our goal isn't just to write one essay today. Our goal is to learn a process that you can use again and again. By the end of the workshop, you'll know what the HiSET essay question is asking you to do, how to read the two passages, how to choose a position, how to organize your ideas, how to write an introduction and body paragraphs, how to acknowledge the other side, and how to revise your writing. We're going to use a gradual process today. First, I do. I'll show you how I do it. Next, we do. We'll practice together. Finally, you do. You'll use the same process independently, so you don't have to know how to write the perfect essay when you walk in today. I'm going to show you the steps. Before we begin, let's get to know the people sitting around us. Turn to a partner, tell your partner your name and one goal you have for today's workshop. For example, you might say, "My name is Maria, and my goal is to learn how to write a better introduction." You have about 1 minute, so now let's turn to our partner, tell our partner our name and what our one goal is for today. Thank you. Let's hear from 2 to 3 people. What's the goal that you have for today? Excellent. Today we're going to work toward those goals. We also have 3 agreements. First, listen actively. Second, try your best. And third, remember that mistakes help us learn. You don't need perfect English today. You need to practice. We're going to have about 2 hours together with a short break. We'll spend a lot of the time actually practicing the skills you need for the HiSET essay. Let's look at what you should be able to do today by the end of the workshop. First, I can explain what the HiSET essay task asked me to do. That means you'll understand exactly what the question wants. Second, I can identify claims and evidence in 2 passages. You'll learn to recognize an author's opinion and the information that supports it. Third, I can plan, draft, and revise a HiSET style essay. We're going to practice the entire writing process. And the last one, I can use transitions and fix common ESL grammar errors. These are all the skills that can make your writing clearer and stronger. At the end of class, we'll come back to these goals and see what you can do. Here's our roadmap. We're going to move through 5 major stages. First, we'll understand the HiSET essay task. Second, we'll plan an essay. Third, we'll draft an essay together. Fourth, we'll review some important grammar issues for ESL writers. And fifth, you'll write independently, revise, and receive feedback. There's a short break after the planning section. Most importantly, notice the progression. I show you, we practice together, you practice independently. That's the process we're going to follow throughout today's workshop. Why are we spending so much time learning how to write an essay? Well, first, the language arts writing portion of the HiSET includes multiple choice questions and an essay. The good news is that you do not need a perfect essay to pass. The essay is scored from 1 to 6, and a score of 2 or higher is a passing score for the writing test. So today, we're going to focus on the skills that can help you move from an unclear or incomplete essay to a clear, organized essay. But this skill is useful for more than the HiSET. Being able to explain an opinion, give reasons, use evidence, and organize your ideas is useful at work, at school, and in everyday life. So you're learning a test skill, but you're also learning a real-world writing skill. Before we write anything, we need to understand the assignment. A common mistake writers make is starting to write before they really understand the question. We're not going to do that. First, we're going to learn exactly what the HiSET essay asks you to do. Then we'll learn how the essay is scored. Next, we'll look at passages and learn how to find claims and evidence. Once we understand the task, we'll begin our first complete demonstration. Let's make the HiSET directions simple. First, you read 2 passages. The 2 authors have different opinions about the same issue. Second, you choose your own position. You need to answer the question and make your own argument. Third, you need evidence. You should use information from the passages, and you can also use your own experience when appropriate. Fourth, you must acknowledge the other side. That means you can't pretend that the other opinion doesn't exist. You need to show that you understand another point of view and then explain why you still support your position. Finally, before you finish, you need to review your writing for spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So remember these 4 big jobs: read, choose, support, acknowledge. Read the passages, choose your position, support it with evidence, acknowledge the other side. Now let's talk about how your essay is evaluated. There are 4 major areas. The first is development. Do you have a clear position? Do you give reasons and evidence? The second is organization. Does your essay have an introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion? Do your ideas connect logically? The third area is language use. Do you use appropriate vocabulary and a variety of sentence structures? The fourth is conventions. That's spelling, punctuation, and grammar. As we work today, I want you to notice that every step we're learning connects to one or more of these 4 areas. HiSET essays receive a score from 1 to 6. At the lower levels, the writer may have an unclear position, limited support, or problems with organization. At the higher levels, the writer has a clear position, strong evidence, effective organization, and better control of language. You don't need to write a perfect literary masterpiece. However, you do need to demonstrate that you understand the issue, take a clear position, support your ideas, organize your writing, and communicate clearly. Remember, a score of 2 or higher is a passing score. Our goal today is to give you a process that helps you produce a clear, organized essay under test conditions. Before we begin our example, let's learn 4 important words that we're going to use repeatedly. First, a claim is an opinion or position. For example, casual clothing helps employees work better. Evidence is the information that supports the claim. For example, we could use a statistic, quotation, fact, or example. And a counter-argument is the other side's opinion. For example, some people believe professional clothing makes customers trust employees. And finally, a thesis. Your thesis is the main position of your entire essay. It usually appears at the end of your introduction. Let's say these words together. Claim. Yes, claim. Evidence. Evidence. Counter-argument. This may be a new one for you. Counter-argument, the other side's position. Thesis. Thesis. You're going to hear these words many times today. Now we're going to begin the most important part of today's lesson. I'm going to demonstrate the complete essay writing process for you. Our topic is casual dress codes at work. The question is, should businesses let employees wear casual clothing, or should they require professional dress? Notice that this is an argument question. There are 2 possible positions. One position says casual clothing should be allowed. The other says employees should dress professionally. We're going to read both sides before we decide what we think. Dressing for Creativity and The Myth of Casual Friday were articles about casual dress codes at work. They were written by columnists of a business magazine, and they appeared side by side in a recent issue. We're going to first read Casual Dress Codes at Work. Okay, are you ready? And the passage is Dressing for Creativity. It's going to answer the author's belief whether businesses should let employees wear casual clothing or should they require professional dress. Okay, read along with me as I read this. Your teacher has given you a copy of both articles, and we're going to read Dressing for Creativity first. Here we go. The business uniform of the 1950s was the gray flannel suit. However, modern America has a different uniform. Companies are increasingly adopting dress codes that favor casual wear. They hope to encourage creativity rather than conformity in the workplace. The term Casual Friday began in Hawaii in the 1960s, a place and time noted for a more casual outlook. Aloha Friday started in support of the state's garment industry by promoting floral print Hawaiian shirts. As the fad spread to the mainland, more and more businesses saw an increase in employee morale and creativity. This trend accelerated with the rise of internet startup companies. Most of these companies were formed by young people who dressed very casually. Their typical attire was sneakers, jeans, and t-shirts. This was fitting since some of these startup enterprises began in dorm rooms garages, and basements. As the companies became successful, their founders were suddenly in charge of million-dollar businesses. Business culture did not change these leaders. Rather, they changed business culture. These young professionals adopted casual attire as their dress code, believing that nonconformity in clothing could spawn creativity. In some companies, it is not unusual to see CEOs and employees wearing jeans and sweatshirts. In fact, casual clothing is even considered a company benefit. Who wouldn't prefer wearing t-shirts rather than suits? The business world has entered a less formal age. Research shows that casual clothing inspires confidence and ingenuity. Gone are the days when one had to deny individuality by hiding inside the mandatory business suit. When the White House had problems with its website, they brought in an executive from a computer company. To do so, they had to alter their outdated dress code. The good news? The expert wearing tennis shoes solved their problems without a coat and tie. In Dressing for Creativity, the author argues that casual clothing can have positive effects in the workplace. The passage explains that casual dress became popular through things like Aloha Friday and later became common in technology companies. The author connects casual clothing with confidence, comfort, and creativity. The author even gives an example of a technology expert wearing tennis shoes while helping solve a website problem. The important idea is this. The author believes that casual clothing can help people feel comfortable and creative. Here's a quotation from the passage. Quote, "Research shows that casual clothing inspires confidence and ingenuity." End quote. As I read this, I want to ask myself, do I agree that clothing can affect creativity and confidence? I don't have to decide yet. I want to hear the other side first. Okay, that first article, Dressing for Creativity, argued for casual clothing at the workplace. Now, let's hear another opinion. This time, it's the myth of Casual Friday. Read along with me, please. Think of a construction worker, a medical doctor, and a police officer. Chances are you pictured in your mind a person with a hard hat, a lab coat, or a blue uniform. This illustrates the fact that many careers have standards for employee attire. With some jobs, the picture of what is appropriate to wear may not be as distinctive. However, having a formal dress code in the workplace is important for maintaining professionalism and customer confidence. People argue that we live in an informal age, so we should dress less formally. Why is this a problem? Well, one reason is productivity. Research shows that people match their attitudes to the clothing they wear. In fact, having clothes that are worn only at work, whether actual uniforms or simply following company dress code, makes people more focused. Casual clothing contributes to casual attitudes toward work. In fact, one study even connects informal dress with increased absenteeism. Another concern is that customers have less trust in people who dress casually at work. Even if an employee is fully engaged in serving the customer, casual clothing signals that comfort, rather than job performance, is the first priority. If employees don't look professional, then how can customers trust them to actually be professional? This is even more important today given the rise of Casual Friday, a day when dress codes are more relaxed. Unfortunately, some people decide to wear clothing more suited to the beach than a place of business. Also, evidence shows that casual dress days influence employees to dress less professionally throughout the week. Casual Friday becomes Casual Thursday and Wednesday, and so on. Before long, the entire week is casual. Now let's look at the second passage. This author takes the opposite position. The author explains that many professions have dress standards for a reason. The passage also argues that casual clothing can lead to more casual attitudes and lower focus. Another important argument is that customers may trust employees more when they look professional. And the author warns that Casual Friday can gradually become casual every day. The key quotation is, quote, "Casual clothes have their place, but it's not in the workplace," end quote. Now I can compare the two passages. Passage 1 says casual clothing can improve confidence and creativity. Passage 2 says professional clothing can improve focus and customer trust. Now I have enough information to make a decision. Now I'm going to show you exactly what I do before I start writing. The first step is choose my position. I've read both passages, but I need to decide what I believe. I'm going to choose this position. Companies should allow casual dress because it helps employees feel confident and work better. Notice I'm not trying to support both sides equally. I've chosen my position. Now I'm going to brainstorm the reasons of why I think companies should allow casual dress. Reason 1, comfortable clothing may reduce stress and help people focus. A second reason is employees may save money because they don't need as many formal work clothes. And also I can use a personal example. For example, I might say that at my workplace, employees wearing jeans on Fridays seem relaxed and morale is high. Notice something important. I'm not writing my essay yet. I'm just getting my ideas organized. Now that I have my position, I can write my introduction. Please note, a strong introduction does 3 things. 1, it introduces the topic. 2, it recognizes that there are different opinions. And 3, it gives my position. Here's an example. Some people believe that comfortable, casual clothing helps workers feel confident and creative. Others believe that professional dress builds trust and focus. I believe that business should allow casual clothing on set days as long as clear guidelines protect a professional image. Now let's notice the structure. First, the topic. Some people believe that comfortable casual clothing helps workers feel confident and creative. It's casual clothing. Now, there are 2 sides to this. Remember, it's an argument, so it has to be where people of goodwill can be on both sides. One side, see, it says, some people believe that comfortable casual clothing helps workers feel confident and creative. And the second side is others believe that professional dress builds trust and focus. And the third thing, my position. I believe that businesses should allow casual clothing on set days as long as clear guidelines protect a professional image. That's my thesis. It's very clear. My readers don't have to guess what I believe. So that's the topic, both sides to show that it's an argument, and my position, the thesis. Now let's look at two actual examples from the casual dress code materials. The first is a much stronger opening. Notice it attracts our attention. Every decade has debated what counts as appropriate attire, from flappers in the 1920s to the hippie movement of the 1960s. It not only gets our attention, but it introduces what the topic is. The general topic is appropriate attire. Okay, then it goes on to let us know that this is an argumentative topic. That debate lives on in the modern workplace where every company has a dress code, spoken or not. And it lets us know that those two differences were discussed in Passage 1 and Passage 2. Dressing for Creativity and the Myth of Casual Friday disagree about how strict the code should be. Now, what is my thesis? What is my position? I side with casual dress. Comfortable clothing helps employees feel confident and do better work. So this is a clear, engaging position with context. But look at the other one that scored only 1. I agree that what I'm wearing don't mean I don't do good work. So it doesn't clearly establish a position, and there's some grammar problems that makes it somewhat difficult for us to understand. Now, the important lesson here is not that we're going to criticize the writer. The lesson that we want to learn is what needs to improve. So when you write your introduction, do you make your position clear? Okay? Does the reader understand the issue? Does my writing sound complete and organized? These are questions you need to ask yourself when you write. Now let's look at the body paragraph structure. Most body paragraphs start with the topic sentence. That's what the main idea of the paragraph is. Then, to support that topic sentence, you need evidence. It could be a fact. You could have a quotation that proves, that supports an example or information from a passage. But it's not enough to have your evidence. You have to explain what that evidence means. And finally, we link back to the thesis. The paragraph needs to connect to the main argument of the essay. So you need to remember topic sentence, then evidence and explanation, then link back to the thesis, the main argument of the essay. There are two useful ways to include evidence from a passage. One is to quote directly, and the other is to paraphrase. But remember, whichever one you choose, it doesn't matter, but you're going to have to explain how the evidence supports your claim. You're not just going to drop it in. Now, quote directly, you will use the exact words that were in the article, and this came from Dressing for Creativity, and you will put a quotation mark at the beginning of the quotation and at the end of the quotation. Then, in parentheses, you will write, if it has an author, you will write the author's last name. If it doesn't, like the article Dressing for Creativity doesn't list an author, so you put the name of the article, Dressing for Creativity. Then you put your ending punctuation, okay? If you don't want to quote, you can paraphrase. But you still, even if you paraphrase, you still have to attribute the idea to the article or the author, because it's not your original idea. So notice here, quote, "This was fitting since some of these startup enterprises began in dorm rooms, garages, and basements," end quote, and then dressing for creativity, full stop or period. Now, the same thing, but in my own words, is a paraphrase. It's where you take somebody else's idea and you put it into your words. This fit well since a number of these startups got their start in dorm rooms, garages, and basements. And then in parentheses, because this was not my idea, I've got the title of the article, Dressing for Creativity, and then a full stop or period at the end of the sentence. Now I'm ready to support my position. Because remember, you can have an opinion, but that doesn't really count if you don't have any support for your opinion. And that means from research, or it could be from your own experience, but you need support. Now notice here that my topic sentence, the sentence that the whole paragraph is about, is, I do my strongest reason is that casual clothing encourages creativity. And in that article, passage 1, Dressing for Creativity, there is a quote that casual clothing inspires confidence and ingenuity. I don't want to stop there. I need to explain this evidence. Okay? What do they mean? Well, it suggests that what employees wear can directly shape how freely they think and create, rather than simply reflecting a company's image. Okay? And the article went on to describe companies founded by young people who were wearing, quote, sneakers, jeans, and t-shirts. They were running million-dollar companies. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that success does not depend on formal dress. Because why? Well, business culture did not change these leaders. Having to wear a suit and a tie. It didn't change them because they were wearing sneakers, jeans, and t-shirts. They changed the business culture. Okay? Now I'm going to add more support, and this time it's going to connect to my own experience. See, I have noticed the same thing in my own life. On days when I'm comfortable, I concentrate longer and speak up more. So I have two pieces of evidence, and I supported and explained each one of them. Now we come to an important HiSET requirement. You must acknowledge the other side. It doesn't mean that you agree with the other side. It just shows that you understand the opposing argument and you're being fair. Now, counter-argument means the side, the opinion that disagrees with your opinion. Okay? And here we have, critics may argue that professional clothing helps employees appear more trustworthy. Okay? Because remember, you're saying that casual clothes help people to be more productive. Okay? But we have to acknowledge that there's opinion that could be valid that other people have. Now, I have to, after I have stated what the other side believes, now I'm going to respond with why I think that opinion is wrong. And I will start with a word like however, or it could be nevertheless. However, professional behavior and strong customer service may be more important than formal clothing. Okay, so it's the idea of the importance of what the company does, not necessarily how the company looks. So when I have added that counter argument, my opponent's argument, I've respected the other side. Then when I go however, I've returned to my own argument. This makes the essay sound more thoughtful and balanced. Okay, now, not everybody is comfortable writing their counter-argument sentence. And this is where we have some sentence frames that might help us. You could start with some people believe, and then you put what they believe, and then however, and why are they wrong? Okay. Some people believe that you're taken more seriously if you are dressed professionally. However, now I'm going to dispute that. However, many people are more interested in the service of the company than how the employees dress. If I don't want to do the some people believe, I could write, although dressing professionally is important, the service provided by a company is more important than professional dress. Or I could have critics may argue, okay? Critics may argue that employees should always dress professionally. But what? But many people are more interested in the service of the company than how the employees dress. Okay, so you can do this, okay? Now, I'm going to give you a sentence so you can practice. I'm going to give you the beginning. Some people believe employees should always dress professionally. Now, I want you to write the rebuttal, why that is wrong. However, okay, just write one response. And to some people believe employees should always dress professionally. I'll give you a few minutes, and then your teacher will be coming around to look at what you have written. Okay? What did you put? Who wants to share? Excellent. These frames are useful because they give you a structure when you're writing under time pressure. Now we come to the conclusion. And you're going to restate your position. You're not going to use the same words. You're going to paraphrase it. Then you're going to summarize your reasons. And you're going to end with a final thought. Okay? So, I am not copying my thesis. Instead of repeating, businesses should allow casual clothing, I might write, I believe employers should trust their workers to dress casually and comfortably. See, it says the same thing in different words. Then I want to go over what are my reasons. Well, a suit has never finished a project, met a deadline, or solved a problem. Skill does that. And then I'm going to end with a final thought. Skill fits in any outfit. So my whole conclusion is very brief. It's for these reasons, I believe employers should trust their workers to dress casually and comfortably. A suit never finished a project, met a deadline, or solved a problem. Skill does that, and skill fits in any outfit. Now let's talk about transitions. Transitions help your reader follow your ideas. They connect ideas. So, if you want to add an idea, you would use also, in addition, furthermore. Or if you're showing contrast, you would use however, on the other hand, although. To give an example, for instance, if we want to show cause and effect, therefore, the cause would be the first sentence, and then you would start the effect with therefore, or as a result, or because would be next to the cause sentence. When you go to end your essay, you can use in conclusion, overall, ultimately, or as can be seen. Okay, you don't need to use a transition in every sentence, but you should use transitions to show how your ideas are connected. Now let's practice. Read the sentence with your partner. Opponents of casual attire claim productivity suffers. However, none of these inherently improve by requiring employees to wear professional attire. Find the transition word. I'll give you a minute. What is it? If you said however, you're correct. What job is however doing? Yes, it's showing contrast. The writer presents one idea and then gives a different or opposing idea. The one idea that casual attire causes productivity to suffer is contrasted with, now this has nothing to do with wearing professional attire. Okay, very good. So transitions are the kind of language that help an essay to become more organized. Now we've completed our full demonstration. You've seen the process from beginning to end. We read 2 passages. We chose a position. We brainstormed reasons. We wrote an introduction. We added evidence. We explained the evidence. We acknowledged the other side. And we wrote a conclusion, and we used transitions throughout. Now it's your turn to begin practicing that process. Our new topic is what makes an effective leader. This time, instead of workplace clothing, we have 2 passages about leadership. The first passage focuses on empathy and collaboration. The second passage focuses on vision and decisiveness. Your job will be to decide what kind of leadership you believe is most effective. Your teacher will give you a copy of both passages, or you can download it by going to the link in the description of this video. Before we analyze the passages, let's think about leadership from our own experience. think of a leader you admire. Maybe it's a teacher, a manager, a family member, maybe a community leader. Okay, ask yourself, did this person lead with empathy? Did they lead with decisiveness? Or did they use both? Now, be thinking of it. I can give you some examples. I admire Abraham Lincoln because he held the United States together through the Civil War. Okay, so his quality of effective leadership was perseverance and steady resolve. Or I could say I admire Nelson Mandela because he chose reconciliation over retribution after decades of imprisonment, using that restraint to unite a deeply divided country. Here's a third example, Eleanor Roosevelt. I admire Eleanor Roosevelt because she made her platform to advocate consistently for the rights of people who had little power to advocate for themselves. Defensa basada on principios, principled advocacy. Okay. Did you come up with yours? Share it with a partner. Okay? Let's hear 2 or 3 examples. I shared mine. What about yours? Very good. Now, let's move from personal experience to evidence from the passages. Remember our vocabulary? Claim and evidence. A claim is an opinion, while evidence is the proof that supports that opinion. Let's look at an example from the leadership passage, passage 1, leadership through empathy and collaboration. Okay, and it's paragraph 3. Are you ready? The claim is empathy isn't just a soft skill, but a powerful tool. That's an opinion, okay? Now we're going to look at our evidence. In paragraph 3 in the passage 1, leadership through empathy and collaboration, we found this evidence. 61% of employees with empathetic leaders reported being innovative versus only 13% with less empathetic leaders. Okay, this is evidence. It gives us some information to support our claim. So, our pattern is first the claim, what the author believes, followed by evidence, information that supports what the author believes. So when you write your essay, you're going to need both. Now you're going to do one with me. Are you ready? We're going to look at a quotation from Leadership Through Vision and Decisiveness. This comes from paragraph 3. Read along with me. A 2020 study of over 2,000 leaders found that those rated highly for decisiveness were 12 times more likely to be considered effective by their peers. Okay, so you break into a group and discuss what is the claim there? What is the evidence? Okay, and then I'll ask you to share if you would please. So take a minute to look at it. Okay, what is the claim? Is it what? Leaders rated highly for decisiveness were considered effective. Okay, more effective. And then what is the evidence? Well, it's a study published in 2020 that found leaders rated decisive were 12 times more likely to be considered effective by their peers. Okay, excellent. Which part did you find hardest? Was it the claim or finding the evidence? Okay. Before we move on, let's check our understanding. Show me with your hand. Thumbs up if you feel confident about finding claims and evidence. Do your thumb sideways if you're almost there. However, it's thumbs down if you need more help. There are no wrong answers. This just tells me how much practice we need before moving forward. Now, if you need help, remember, ask yourself, what does the author believe? That is probably the claim. Then ask, what information does the author use to support that belief? This is the evidence. Now we're moving from reading to planning. Remember what we did with the workplace stress topic? We didn't immediately start writing paragraphs. First, we created a plan. Planning saves time because you know what you want to say before you begin writing complete sentences. I'm going to model the organizer for the leadership essay. First, my position. Empathy is the most important leadership trait. Next, I need a reason and evidence. Reason 1, empathy builds trust. I can support that with evidence from the passage. Then I need another reason. For example, I could use a personal experience with a peer mentoring program. Next, I need my counter-argument. I recognize that decisiveness is important too. Finally, I need a conclusion idea. I might say, the best leaders combine empathy with action. Notice that my organizer gives me a roadmap for the essay now. I don't have to invent everything while I'm writing. I've already made the important decisions. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to build our essay together. And our question is, does empathy or decisiveness make a leader more successful? To write this essay, we're going to need 5 things. First, what is our position? We're going to have to decide that it's empathy or is it decisiveness. It can't be both. Then we're going to have our reason. That's the second thing. Reason 1 plus evidence. Then our third is reason 2 plus evidence. And fourth, the counter argument. And fifth is our conclusion idea. You're going to work with your group. You're going to use ideas from both passages. You don't have to write complete paragraphs yet. Just give me ideas for each box. Okay. Let's see. What did we come up with? Oh, good. Let's put that in the position box. I believe empathy is the most important leadership trait because it builds trust and helps teams thrive. Wow. Now, what do I have? I have to look at both of the essays or of the readings and find my evidence. And my first one, because I'm going to argue that empathy is the most important leadership trait, and I've got two reasons. It builds trust, and it helps teams thrive. And what I'm going to do is that it builds trust, I can look for paragraph 3, okay, in where it's arguing for empathy. The nonprofit study in paragraph 3 found that 61% of employees with empathetic leaders reported being innovative at work, compared to only 13% under less empathetic leaders. And 76 said they were engaged versus just 32%. Paragraph 1 also explains why. Empathetic leaders prioritize understanding the needs and emotions of their team members, and this builds trust and open communication. Now, let's go to our second reason. Well, empathy helps leaders succeed with diverse teams. Okay, passage 1, paragraph 2 notes that leaders who listen actively and show genuine concern bridge cultural and personal differences and create inclusive spaces where people feel safe sharing ideas, something a purely vision-driven approach doesn't directly address. Now, I've got to have a counter argument, opposing view. What am I going to put in that? Like, someone on the other side might argue that vision and decisiveness matter more than empathy. And they would point to Martin Luther King, Steve Jobs, okay? And how could I rebut that? Well, I can argue that empathy doesn't mean indecisiveness, okay? Since true empathetic leadership involves balancing compassion with accountability. So, empathetic leaders can still make tough calls. They just do it with awareness of the impact on their team. Now, I need a concluding idea. Maybe it could be vision and decisiveness can produce short-term wins, but empathy is what sustains a team's trust, innovation, and engagement over time, okay, which makes it the more foundational leadership trait, even if the two aren't mutually exclusive. Now we can turn our plan into a thesis. Remember, a thesis does two important jobs. First, it states your position. Second, it previews your reasons. So, remember our frame, I believe, what is more effective because, and then the two reasons, okay? For example, I believe empathy is the most important leadership trait because it builds trust and helps teams thrive. See, I can almost see my organizer inside the thesis. My position, empathy is most important. First reason, it builds trust. Second reason, it helps teams thrive. That's what a strong thesis does. It gives the reader a clear roadmap. Now it's your turn. You're going to use your organizer of empathy versus decisiveness to write one thesis sentence, okay? And you can use this frame. I believe, and then you would put either empathy or decisiveness, is the most important leadership trait because, and you're going to need two reasons, okay? So, write your thesis alone. Then you're going to read it to your partner and give each other feedback. Give each other one suggestion, okay? Now we're ready to move from the plan to the actual essay. We already know what the introduction does, and we know how to write a body paragraph. We know how to acknowledge the other side, and we know how to conclude. We're going to put it all together now. Let's review the introduction. It has three important parts: the hook, the context, and the thesis. The hook gives the reader an interesting opening. The context introduces the issue, and the thesis gives your position and reasons. The thesis is usually the last sentence of the introduction. So when you're writing under test conditions, remember, start broad, introduce the issue, then become specific with your thesis. If you're not sure how to begin, you can always use one of these sentence frames. For instance, many people believe, and what do they believe? But I believe, what do you believe? Or when it comes to, then there are two main views. Or in today's world is an important issue. Okay, so choose one of these if you're having trouble starting. Now we're going to write a paragraph together. Our topic is empathy versus decisiveness. We're going to use this structure. One reason, then fill in the blank, is important is fill in the blank. Then, for example, the passage explains, fill in the blank with what it explains. And finally, this shows that, fill in the blank. Now I'm going to write what you give me. Let's start with our topic sentence. Okay. One reason empathy is important is that it builds trust and increases engagement and innovation among team members. Now, what is one reason that it's important? Okay. Yes. For example, the passage explains that a 2021 study found 61% of employees with empathetic leaders reported being innovative at work, compared to only 13% of those with less empathetic leaders, and 76% said they were engaged, compared to just 32% under less empathetic leaders. Okay, good. Now, what does that tell us? Okay, the explanation, well, this shows that empathy isn't just a soft skill a leader happens to have. It directly shapes how motivated and creative a team becomes, meaning empathetic leadership can produce measurably better results than leadership based on authority alone. Now that we know how to organize our ideas, let's spend a few minutes on grammar. Remember, grammar is not the first thing we worry about. First, we need good ideas and organization. Then we revise our language. We're going to review 5 common problems: subject-verb agreement, fragments and run-ons, parallel structure, commas and semicolons, and spelling and word choice. These are especially important for ESL writers because small grammar problems can make a good idea difficult to understand. Look at this sentence. Members of the Student Senate has been planning. Something's wrong here. The subject is members. Members is plural. So we need the plural verb have. The correct sentence is, members of the Student Senate have been planning. Now here's a helpful strategy. Don't let a word close to the verb confuse you. Find the true subject first, then choose the correct verb. Now look at this example. It's worth the cost to identify problems before you make a major investment. The second part is a fragment. Before you make a major investment cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. We can combine the ideas. It's worth the cost to identify problems before you make a major investment. One whole sentence. When you revise your essay, watch for sentences beginning with words like before, because, although, if, when. Sometimes those clauses need to be connected to another sentence. Now let's look at parallel structure. The incorrect version says only 10 centimeters wide and weighing less than 1 gram. The correct version is only 10 centimeters wide and weighs less than 1 gram. The important idea is that the grammatical structures need to match. Think of parallel structure as keeping the parts of a list balanced. If one part uses one verb form, the next part should match it when the sentence requires parallel construction. Here's another common problem. We have two complete sentences. Monarchs require a temperate habitat. That's one sentence. And the second sentence is, therefore, the climate forces them to migrate. We cannot simply put therefore between them without punctuation. Notice that a correct version is, monarchs require a temperate habitat, semicolon, therefore, comma, the climate forces them to migrate. End punctuation. So remember this pattern. Complete sentence, semicolon, transition word, comma, complete sentence, period. For example, the job was difficult, semicolon, however, comma, I continued, full stop. Or, she studied hard, semicolon, therefore, comma, she passed the test, period. Finally, check your spelling and word choice. Here are some words that writers sometimes misspell. Phenomenon. Look at how it's often misspelled and what the correct spelling is. Extraordinary. Okay? Extraordinary. And if you break it into two parts, it's almost like extraordinary, and then put them together for one word. Comfortable. Comfortable. Look how it's actually spelled. Businesses. Okay, look at businesses. The correct spelling. Cloths instead of when they mean clothes. Okay? So, read your essay aloud, slowly to catch misspelled words. Oftentimes, if we're just reading it in our head, we miss the mistakes. But if you read it aloud, you'll probably catch the mistakes. Now we reach the final stage. This is the you do portion. I've modeled the process and we practiced the process together. Now you're going to use the process independently. You'll choose a prompt, you'll plan your response, you'll write, revise, and receive feedback from your teacher. You may choose one of these three topics: leadership, or talent versus hard work, or casual dress codes. Choose the topic that you feel most comfortable writing about. You're not expected to write an entire perfect essay in these 12 minutes. Your goal is to demonstrate the process. Use your organizer, use your thesis frame, use the transition list. At minimum, write a strong introduction and at least one complete body paragraph. Work quietly and independently. Your teacher will walk around, and if you're stuck, your teacher's not going to write the essay for you, but can help you. This is your opportunity to practice. Keep this checklist beside you while you write. Ask yourself, did I state my position clearly? Did I use evidence from a passage? Did I acknowledge the other side? Did I use at least one transition word? Now, don't wait until the end to ask these questions. Check yourself while you're writing. You have about 12 minutes. Your teacher will give you a 3-minute warning and then a 1-minute warning. Writing isn't finished when you put the last period on the page. Good writers revise. First, read your essay aloud. Second, use ARMS. A stands for add, R stands for remove, M stands for move, S stands for substitute. Ask yourself, do I need to add information? Do I need to remove something unnecessary? Do I need to move a sentence? Do I need to substitute a weak word or sentence? Then you can swap papers with a partner and check for clarity and grammar. But remember, revision improves the ideas and organization. Editing improves grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Before we exchange papers, let's review 4 common mistakes. Number 1, copying the passages instead of using your own words. This is a big no-no. It's plagiarism. Number 2, not having a clear position or thesis. Number 3, forgetting the introduction or conclusion. Number 4, ignoring the other side. These mistakes can keep an essay from demonstrating what you know. So before you finish, ask yourself, do I have a position? Do I have evidence? Do I have an introduction? Do I have a conclusion? Did I acknowledge another point of view? Now we're going to do a short peer review. Exchange papers with a partner. You're not grading your partner. You're helping your partner find an important parts of the essay. Okay? First, underline the thesis. Okay? Second, circle one piece of evidence. Third, put a box around one transition word. Then, give your partner one positive comment and one suggestion. You can use this frame, I liked, fill in the blank, consider, fill in the blank. For example, I liked your example about your workplace. Consider adding more explanation after the quotation. Now remember, keep your feedback respectful and specific. Before we finish, let's use the final checklist. Under development, ask, is my position clear? Did I use evidence from the passage and, when appropriate, my own experience? Did I acknowledge the other side? Now, under organization, do I have an introduction, body, and conclusion? Did I use transitions? Under language and conventions, ask, did I use appropriate words in varied sentences? Did I check spelling, punctuation, and grammar? This checklist connects directly to the 4 areas used to evaluate the HiSET essay. Use it every time you practice writing. Before you leave, I want you to complete a short exit ticket. On a piece of paper, I want you to write your thesis sentence. Second, write 1 transition word you used. Third, finish the sentence. One thing I still want to practice is, you fill in what is that you still want to practice. This isn't a test. It helps you think about what you learned and what you still need to practice. Take about 4 minutes, and when you finish, please turn it in to your teacher. Let's look back at what we did today. First, I modeled the process. You watch me read the passages, choose a position, plan, write a thesis, use evidence, address the other side, and organize an essay. Then we practice finding claims and evidence, we built an organizer, we developed a thesis, and we wrote a body paragraph together. Finally, you selected a prompt and wrote independently. You revised, you reviewed another student's writing, and you used a checklist. So today you learned a process. Read, choose, plan, write, support, acknowledge, revise. This is a process you can use when you write your HiSET essay. You did a lot of work today. Writing an essay in another language is challenging, and you practiced many different skills. Remember, you don't need to write the perfect essay immediately. Every time you practice, you become more comfortable with the process. When you take the HiSET, remember the steps. Understand the question, read both passages, choose your position, plan your reasons and evidence, write your thesis, develop your paragraphs, acknowledge the other side, use transitions, and most importantly, revise and edit. Keep practicing. Every essay you write brings you closer to your HiSET goal. Great work today, everyone, and thank you for your hard work and participation.